It started with a rumor. Everyone at Hollow Creek University whispered about room 217, but no one dared to speak too loudly. It was said that something lived there, something beyond human comprehension. When the East Wing dormitory was renovated, room 217 was left untouched. Its door was bolted shut, sealed with rusting chains, and marked with a faded sign that read "No entry." But to a curious mind like Mia's, it was an invitation. Mia was a journalism major with a penchant for unraveling mysteries. Her friends warned her, begged her even, to let this one go. But late one Friday night, armed with a flashlight and her phone for documentation, Mia decided to investigate. The hallway was eerily quiet, the usual hum of dorm life replaced by an unsettling stillness. She stood in front of the chained door, her breath clouding in the cold air. The temperature here was always unnaturally low, a detail she hadn't noticed until now. She hesitated, the weight of the stories creeping into her resolve. They said a student named Daniel vanished from this room a decade ago. The only thing left behind was a bloodied mattress and claw marks gouged deep into the walls. Mia shook off the thought and began cutting through the chains with bolt cutters she borrowed from the maintenance closet. Each snap echoed like a gunshot, her heart pounding louder with every cut. When the last link fell, the door creaked open on its own, releasing a stale, metallic odor that made her gag. Inside, the air was heavy, oppressive. Her flashlight flickered as she stepped in. The room was in disarray, but oddly pristine. The furniture was intact, untouched by the grime of time. A thick layer of dust coated everything except the bed. It looked freshly made, the crisp white sheets contrasting against the dim, otherworldly light filtering in through the lone window. Something about that bed felt wrong, inviting yet threatening. Mia moved closer, her instincts screaming at her to leave. The walls were covered in cryptic symbols etched deep into the plaster, some resembling eyes, others like twisted mouths. She snapped pictures, her hands trembling. Then she noticed something odd. The room was silent, unnaturally so. The kind of silence that presses against your ears and fills your mind with static. And then it happened. A faint whisper. It wasn't coming from her phone or the hallway. It was inside the room, circling her like a predator stalking its prey. Her flashlight dimmed, plunging the space into near darkness. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice cracking. The whispers grew louder, morphing into indistinct voices, overlapping, screaming. Her flashlight sputtered back on, and she gasped. The bed was empty no longer. A figure sat there, a man, or what was left of one. His eyes were hollow, his skin gray and stretched tightly over sharp cheekbones. He tilted his head, studying her like she was the anomaly, not him. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped, his voice layered with tones that didn't belong to him alone. Mia stumbled back, knocking over a chair. The sound seemed to enrage him. He stood, impossibly tall, his limbs bending at unnatural angles. "Leave," he hissed, his voice shaking the walls. But Mia couldn't move. Her legs felt rooted to the floor. The door slammed shut behind her, locking itself with an invisible force. The room began to shift. The symbols on the walls glowed, pulsating like beating hearts. The furniture melted into shadows that crept toward her, reaching with clawed hands. The man, or the thing, lunged. But instead of attacking, he stopped inches from her face, his hollow eyes meeting hers. And then she saw it, a glimpse into his torment. Flashes of people trapped in the room, screaming for help, clawing at the walls, their souls devoured by whatever cursed force lived here. Mia's phone vibrated, snapping her back to reality. The man was gone, but the whispers remained, louder now. She didn't think, she ran. The door resisted her at first, but she forced it open with every ounce of strength she had. The hallway outside was a blur as she sprinted toward the exit. The cold air chased her, the whispers following until she crossed the threshold of the East Wing. When she looked back, the door to room 217 was closed, the chains somehow back in place. Her phone screen was cracked, but the pictures she took were intact, each one darker than the last, the final photo showing the man standing inches behind her. Mia tried to tell the campus security, but they laughed it off as a prank. Even her friends dismissed her, saying she'd let the rumors get to her head. But she knew the truth. She could still feel the weight of his gaze, still hear the whispers when the lights were off. She transferred schools the next semester, but she never stopped wondering, if room 217 was so dangerous, why hadn't the university demolished it? The answer came years later when she stumbled upon an old article. Room 217 wasn't sealed to keep people out. It was to keep it in. And Mia? She wasn't sure she had left it behind.